I got a fresh start on the very day Jake decided to ask me out. There he was, standing in a circle of deep red roses and flickering candles, his eyes locked onto mine. No amount of fancy decorations could hide the impatience simmering in his gaze. My roommate dragged me downstairs, and I decided enough was enough. I pulled Emma, who had been silently watching, closer to me. Jake's face turned serious as he stared me down. Mia, what's your move? I asked like you wanted. What more do you need? I shook my head. You asked because your family was pushing you. This isn't what I want. I've always known your heart belongs to Emma. If that's true, I'll let you two be together. Emma looked confused, her eyes full of uncertainty. Jake paused for a moment, then grabbed my wrist, his voice getting louder. You're just trying to embarrass me in front of everyone, aren't you? You really can't tell right from wrong? I fought back my disgust, forced a sincere smile, and pushed Emma into Jake's arms. You two are meant to be. I won't get in the way of true love. Jake glared at me, his lips silently arguing. I patted my chest reassuringly. Don't worry, I'll talk to your folks. You won't be humiliated. The crowd hesitated but then started cheering, lifted by my words. It was just a proposal. Changing who was involved didn't make much difference. But as the crowd dispersed, Jake's unease grew when he noticed Emma's slightly rounded belly. He sat her on a nearby bench, turning to me with intense anger. What are you talking about? How could Emma be pregnant? Of course, I couldn't tell him that in my past life, Emma had gotten pregnant just before graduation and blamed her first miscarriage on me. She claimed that if I hadn't rushed to support her during her competition, she wouldn't have lost the baby. Furious, Jake had arranged for my overseas scholarship to be revoked. In that moment, I casually lied. My mom has a friend in OB/GYN who saw Emma for a checkup. Jake's anger flared. So you knew she was pregnant and still did this? He hesitated, struggling to express his frustration. I pretended to be surprised. You love her so much. Didn't you promise in front of everyone from both our families that you'd marry only her? Are you backing out? I sneered. Jake, your so-called true love is pretty unreliable. Jake was speechless, searching for a comeback. Behind him, Emma approached cautiously. Please stop arguing. She placed a hand protectively over her belly. It's my fault for being naive and trusting the wrong person, which led to this. The doctor said my health is fragile. If I miscarry again, it could be life-threatening. Unable to stand her distress, Jake immediately comforted her. Don't worry, Emma. I'll find the jerk responsible. Emma's child was fathered by her mixed-race boyfriend from her study abroad days, but that man had disappeared. She clung to Jake's sleeve. Don't look for him? I don't want him anymore. I chuckled softly. You can't hit him, and you can't find him. What are you gonna do? Emma stayed silent, leaning against Jake. I don't know. I've been deceived and lost everything. You two are all I have left. I remained silent as Jake clenched his teeth. Emma, don't worry. For the sake of our childhood friendship, I'll take responsibility for the child. Perfect. Just what I was waiting for. Not many knew about Emma's pregnancy, and she took an extended leave from school. Jake rented a 3-bedroom apartment for her to recover. After sending Emma off, Jake turned to me, his eyes wide with disbelief. Why did you react like that? I gave him a professionally crafted fake smile. Seeing you and Emma overcome all obstacles to be together fills me with happiness. Jake looked even more frustrated, clearly not happy with my response. In my past life, we were thrown together due to a family-arranged marriage. Meanwhile, Emma had married her beloved mixed-race boyfriend without hesitation. Little did she know that guy often brought home various mistresses, deeply traumatizing Emma and causing multiple miscarriages. When she lost her 3rd child due to domestic violence, I had just found out I was pregnant. Fearing it would upset her, I kept my news to myself and only told Jake over the phone. But when Jake's mom found out about my pregnancy, the news reached Emma. She saw it as the ultimate betrayal. That night, she sent Jake a message. I hope in the next life, the one by my side until the end is you. Then she turned on the kitchen gas. She didn't survive. Jake went berserk at the hospital, coming home to smash everything, accusing me of being a murderer and claiming I was the reason his beloved Emma was gone. Afterward, my dad's company was maliciously targeted by his family, and I suffered for years. Reflecting on that, I clenched my fists and walked upstairs without sparing Jake a glance. This time, I would ensure these two became inextricably linked, never able to escape each other. Otherwise, how could I ever repay the agony I endured in my past life? With nothing planned for the weekend, my dad asked me to come home for a meal. The Jake family was hosting, intending to discuss our arranged marriage. I told my dad there was no chance for Jake and me because he had decided to take care of Emma for life. This meeting was the perfect opportunity to clarify everything. After waiting for over half an hour, Jake finally arrived at the private room. Under the disappointed gaze of his parents, he boldly declared, "I promise to take care of Emma for life, and I will not go back on my word." His father clutched his chest, shouting in frustration. Unable to comprehend Jake's mindset, I smiled inwardly. If they knew Jake was about to become a father, they might be even more agitated. My dad cleared his throat. "Ethan, given the circumstances, let's call off the engagement. We should respect the wishes of the young people." As we were sorting things out, Jake received a call, checked his phone, and suddenly glared at me. "Mia, you played dirty. You haven't changed at all. You're still so mean," he shouted and then flung his wine at my face. Caught off guard, I coughed violently. My dad was furious, seizing Jake and slapping him. "You brat, I watched you grow up. And this is how you treat my daughter." Mrs. Smith rushed over to protect her precious son. I wiped my face with a napkin, coldly staring at Jake. He was agitated and leaned down to whisper fiercely, his voice barely above a hiss. "I knew your fake congratulatory act for me and Emma was fake. You're a venomous person pretending to be nice while undermining Emma's pregnancy behind our backs." So that was why he was angry, I sneered. "Jake, you don't have the right to accuse me without knowing the full story." Then I slowly poured the fresh clam soup over his head as if watering a dying plant. Drenched, Jake staggered back. "You'll pay for this." He shoved me aside, grabbed his coat, and stormed out. The wooden door slammed shut behind him, echoing in the tense room. The elders awkwardly tried to smooth things over, while Mrs. Smith began to mock me. "You've become more temperamental, Mia. What kind of good girl throws soup at her future husband?" I replied coolly, "You've misunderstood. We made it clear earlier that Jake and Emma are committed to each other." She crossed her arms and continued, "To be honest, Emma is wonderful. If her family's business hadn't gone bankrupt, you wouldn't have had a chance to be our daughter-in-law." My dad, infuriated, demanded to know what she meant. I held my dad's hand and retorted with a smile, "Auntie, is your family's daughter-in-law merely a possession? If I'm so unworthy, why do you call me every day to keep tabs on your son? Don't you think he's a bad seed, incapable of good behavior?" Mrs. Smith was left speechless, her eyes rolling back in anger. In my past life, she had been the one to spread rumors about my pregnancy, belittling me in front of Emma. This ultimately led to the tragic outcome. But after Emma's incident, she and Jake joined forces to accuse me of being heartless and vicious, claiming I had made my pregnancy public for attention. When I miscarried due to Jake's relentless torment, Emma berated me, her manicured nails scratching my face until it bruised. Reflecting on this, I realized that any family capable of raising someone as self-absorbed as Jake could never be a good place. Jake rushed back to campus late at night to comfort Emma. Ignoring protests, he stormed into the girls' dormitory. When I ascended the stairs, he had Emma tightly in his embrace, his cold gaze sweeping over the crowd. "Anyone who dares say another word about her is opposing the Jake family. Don't blame me if I make you leave this school." He truly believed he owned the place. Holding my sketch pad, I pushed through the onlookers, shaking my head. "Everyone, it's just a lunatic throwing a tantrum. No need to gawk." Silence enveloped the crowd, and my 3 roommates gave me enthusiastic thumbs-ups. Jake's grip on Emma tightened, eliciting a soft gasp from her. "What did you say?" he asked incredulously. On the ride back to campus, Jake had called, fuming that if he returned late and Emma lost even a hair, he would hold me responsible. I had laughed at that, and he had retorted, "You think I'm joking? If anything happens to Emma, I'll do whatever it takes." Of course he would. In my previous life, he sought revenge on me for Emma's tragic death, orchestrating financial traps that ruined my family's company. When my father lay ill in the hospital, Jake made him kneel to repent for me. He had forgotten the countless meals he shared at our table and how my father treated him like a son. As we locked eyes, the tension was palpable. Suddenly, Emma rushed forward, gripping my wrist. Mia, even if you're upset that Jake chose me, you shouldn't spread rumors. I pulled away, keeping my distance. First of all, you know whether you're pregnant or not. Your tears may work on Jake, but don't think the world will accommodate you. My roommate applauded. Well said, you're my idol. The other girls began to murmur. Exactly. Everyone just heard the news about her pregnancy, but she's the one throwing a fit. I just stepped out to grab a package and accidentally brushed against her shoulder, and she coldly accused me of being Mia's accomplice. I couldn't even defend myself. She acts like everyone's out to get her when, in reality, no one cares that much. Emma's face drained of color, and she stumbled back. Jake caught her glaring at me. Mia, don't think you can act recklessly just because your dad supports you. If you don't apologize to Emma tonight, you won't set foot back in this dorm. Hearing this stirred something within me. I stepped closer. Jake, barging into a girl's dorm and threatening a girl? You should be the one apologizing. You've embarrassed your entire family. Jake, furious, raised his hand as if to force me into a bow. I seized his wrist, twisted it down, and flung him to the ground. These past few days, I hadn't just honed my art skills. I had also practiced judo. Your mother asked me to teach you a lesson. It's my responsibility. Emma, both shocked and scared, pulled the blushing Jake to his feet. The dorm supervisor arrived with a broom, and Jake finally left. The next day, he used his connections to trace the IP address of the person who leaked Emma's pregnancy. It turned out to be Naomi, who had recently been competing with Emma for a scholarship. As I took out the trash, I spotted Jake and Emma cornering Naomi, demanding she kneel and apologize. Emma's eyes sparkled with satisfaction, yet she maintained her innocent facade. Let it go, Jake. Naomi hasn't bothered me lately. Besides, she's close to Mia. This might upset her. I don't want more trouble. Jake's protective instincts flared. I knew Mia wouldn't let it go. He leaned in, threatening Naomi that if she didn't kneel, he'd reveal her photos from when she worked at a bar. Jake's method of resolving issues was always crude. Despite sharing a dorm, he never considered giving Emma a break. Naomi trembled, feeling humiliated. If Emma hadn't bullied me for my opportunities, I wouldn't have had to resort to this. As she spoke, she pulled a pencil from her hair and lunged at them. Don't touch her, Jake shouted, panic in his voice shielding Emma. In the scuffle, he inadvertently pushed me into Naomi's path. The sharp pencil grazed my arm, blood welling up. In Naomi's shocked gaze, I took the pencil from her hand. Go to the advisor for punishment. I won't pursue this. Naomi nodded and turned to leave, but Emma screamed. She can't go, Jake! Did you see? They're in this together. If I don't get justice today, I'll end it all. Clearly, she intended to push Naomi further, making me her target for revenge. Calm down, Naomi. She acknowledged me and went to find the advisor. Jake, having checked on Emma, finally noticed my wound. I'm sorry, Mia, he said, genuine guilt on his face. It was an emergency, and Emma's situation is special, so I had to. Push me into danger? I looked at him with disdain. Did you ever think that if I hadn't reacted, the pencil could have gone into my eye? Jake swallowed hard. It wasn't that serious. Emma's an artist. Her hands can't get hurt. In that moment, he forgot that I had also been painting since I was 7. I stepped closer, and Jake instinctively shielded Emma behind him. Jake, extend your hand. I have something for you. He frowned but stretched out his right hand. I pressed the pencil into his palm, dragging it across. Oh, what are you doing? Are you insane? Emma gasped and clung to Jake. I smiled sweetly. Jake, our years of friendship and your little shove earlier, I'm returning them all to you. And I wish you and Emma a lifetime of entanglement. As I walked away, Jake's eyes quivered with shock. Not long after, Emma's prolonged absence from school became a hot topic, and her pregnancy was impossible to hide. Initially, the school planned to expel her, but Jake managed to smooth things over with a hefty donation, promising to fund a new library, which ultimately secured her diploma. However, the gossip around campus intensified, making Emma increasingly sensitive. Whenever she spotted groups whispering, she felt they were mocking her. A minor incident, like a roommate forgetting to greet her, led her to accuse others of isolating her. Meanwhile, I devoted myself to the studio, preparing for the imminent national painting competition. The winner would earn the chance to study under a renowned artist for 6 months, a dream I had cherished for years. In my past life, I had prepared for months, brimming with confidence. But on the day of the competition, Emma experienced severe abdominal pain. Beneath the sycamore tree, she clung to my arm, pleading with me not to abandon her. Despite calling for an ambulance and alerting a teacher, she later accused me of neglecting her. This time, I vowed not to show any compassion. Kindness bestowed upon the undeserving only leads to calamity. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I completed my painting and opened the door to leave. A tall figure loomed at the entrance, startling me. "Jake, what are you doing here?" I regarded him warily. "I owe you an apology for last time," he said, attempting to push his way into my studio. "There's no need. It won't be your last apology," I retorted coldly. Jake paused. His expression hurt. "Even without the engagement, you don't have to talk to me like this, and you have no right to act blameless. Knowing Emma is pregnant, you should be supporting her instead of leaving her alone." "Mia, when did you become so self-serving?" He shot back, frustration lacing his tone. I glared at him. "Stay out of this. If I stay with her, how can you showcase your supposed deep love for her?" I didn't have time for his manipulative rhetoric. "Get lost. Don't interfere with my chances of winning." Jake seized my wrist, desperation in his eyes. "Even if you win, how much will you gain? I'll offer you $5,000 to care for Emma full-time." "You think this competition is mere hype? I can participate whenever." I smiled, shaking off his grip. "Jake, it's time to clear your head." On Monday, I arrived early at the competition venue, drawing number 9. The hall buzzed with excitement when a commotion erupted at the entrance. A contestant shouted, "Who brings bodyguards to a painting competition?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Emma dressed in a stunning gown, surrounded by a group of black-suited bodyguards. Jake carefully escorted her, draping a cashmere shawl over her shoulders. It resembled the arrival of a celebrity. Suddenly, I recalled that Emma had also registered for this competition. Yet, seeing her lounging at home, posting numerous maternity photos, I assumed she had forgotten about it. I stepped into the restroom, only to find the door locked. Initially, I thought it was a prank, but as I climbed out, I caught a glimpse of a bodyguard sprinting away. Thankfully, I wasn't delayed long. When I reached the stage, Emma had already taken the microphone, sharing her creative journey. Behind her, the painting on display was my recent work, titled *Dawn*. This piece reflects my cherished moments with my beloved Mr. Jake. Our love shines like this eternal sunlight. I interrupted her presentation, cutting the power to her display. "Claiming others' work as your own, your imagination knows no bounds." Emma froze, her gaze filled with disbelief. She clearly hadn't expected me to appear. "Mia!" Jake rushed forward, trying to pull me away. "We can discuss this later. Don't make a scene here." I restrained him, pinning him to the ground. "You scumbag! My painting has been stolen, and you dare lecture me?" Now, I finally understood why Jake had come to my studio. His shifty demeanor had betrayed his true intentions. "You weren't there to apologize. You were there to steal my work." Emma interjected, "Mia, stop fabricating stories. People will think you're insane." Jake motioned for the bodyguards to remove me from the scene. In the ensuing chaos, Professor Harper, a respected figure in the art world, took the stage and silenced the uproar. He turned to Emma, asking if *Dawn* was indeed her creation. Eagerly, Emma affirmed, only to be met with a knowing smile and a shake of the head from Professor Harper. "Young lady, while skills can be refined, a tarnished character is irreparable." Emma's face drained of color. "What do you mean?" When she looked up, my entire portfolio was being displayed on the big screen. It was straightforward. Since deciding to study under Professor Harper, I had been sending him a new painting each month. *Dawn* was completed a week prior and submitted to the competition committee. Emma stood before a sea of disapproving faces. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she clutched her belly and collapsed into Jake's arms. "Jake, Mia has always regarded me as a rival. She never trusted us." Jake's anger turned toward me. You did this intentionally, pretending to be diligent, setting us up for failure. I sneered. You're the thief, and somehow you're the one who feels wronged. Your shamelessness is astounding. Jake, with a sense of false righteousness, ordered the bodyguards to clear the stage. Emma is pregnant and can't handle this stress. I just wanted to cheer her up. Besides, it's just a painting. There's no need for this fuss. Just let it go. The true thief spoke as if he were a martyr. Spare me your twisted logic. I couldn't contain my rage any longer. Jake, to elevate Emma in the eyes of a master, you're willing to ruin my opportunity? Who gave you that authority? And locking me in the restroom, was that your idea too? Jake fell silent, his gaze conflicted. At my insistence, the competition organizers called the police. However, after a fine was paid, both Jake and Emma were released. Yet the video of Emma's humiliation at the competition circulated widely, damaging her reputation. Alongside other artists, I condemned such disgraceful plagiarism. In just days, Emma faced severe backlash and had to disable her comments section. Late at night, Jake called, still blaming me for being confrontational. You know she's pregnant, can't you cut her some slack? Being pregnant doesn't excuse her actions. As graduation approached, I moved out of the dorm, fully immersed in learning from Professor Harper. I also traveled to various cities in the South, visiting renowned painters. Upon returning, the class president suggested a pre-graduation gathering. She hesitated. By the way, Emma will be there. I wasn't surprised. After all, we were in the same major. However, it was around this time in my previous life that Emma had her first miscarriage. The gathering spot was on the second floor of a cozy bar with an open terrace. The evening breeze was refreshing. During the meal, Jake attentively cared for Emma's swollen belly. Emma put down her glass and approached me. Mia, accompany me to the restroom. Alarm bells rang in my head, and I took a step back. With so many girls around, why me? Mia, Jake's tone was stern. Our issues shouldn't involve Emma. Accompanying her won't kill you. Remembering how Jake had threatened my father's life, forcing me to do hard labor for hours daily and watch over Emma's grave, I felt a surge of hatred. How did Jake react when I died of heart failure from overwork? He probably laughed, wishing me eternal damnation. I stayed put. Emma, displeased, rubbed her eyes and headed to the restroom. During this pause, Naomi, whom I hadn't seen in a while, stood up to toast Jake. Mr. Jake, I was wrong, terribly wrong, but please don't harass my parents anymore. They're farmers, and my mom's mentally ill. She can't handle the stress. Naomi looked worn out, her voice trembling on the verge of collapse. Jake leisurely sipped his wine. Oh, what does that have to do with me? You upset Emma. This is the price. Naomi gritted her teeth. I've been writing apology letters to her for a month. What more do you want? You even sent thugs to harass us. Jake seemed surprised. I only had them cause some trouble at the orchard. This was already a severe crime. I looked at Jake in disbelief. Naomi was a poor student. Her family's orchard was their livelihood. Jake's actions could ruin their income. Yet he thought the punishment was light. A gust of wind shook the terrace. Naomi, unsteady, fell forward, and Jake instinctively caught her. Returning from the restroom, Emma saw this and flared with anger. She rushed to pull Naomi's hair. How dare you seduce him? I must have been too lenient. None of the classmates dared to intervene. Emma's outbursts were notorious. If she was upset, Jake would make others pay. Calm down, Emma. It's a misunderstanding. In the chaos, the silver railing shook violently. With a loud crash, Emma and Jake fell from the second floor. The class president, frantic, yelled, "Call 911! Call 911!" I glanced down, seeing a pool of blood beneath Emma, illuminated by the orange streetlights, like a blooming blood-red flower. Emma had lost her child. The class president said that upon waking, Emma screamed and choked Jake. If it weren't for you and that tramp, my child wouldn't be gone. You promised to take care of me for life. Was it all a lie? You're just like the man who abandoned me. Jake stayed by her side, not resisting. In the previous life, Jake told me he spoiled Emma because she saved his life. In elementary school, he sneaked out to find a puppy and nearly froze to death. Emma carried him home, saving him. He vowed to take care of her forever, but he didn't know it was me who carried him home through the snow. After the fall, Jake's right hand was fractured. and he visited Emma daily. At first, he felt guilty, thinking the accident was partly his fault. Moreover, he believed Emma's extreme behavior was due to her troubled past and betrayals. He posted on social media, "I will use all my love and care to bring you out of the darkness just like you carried me home." But Jake didn't know his family was also about to face troubles. During a meal, my dad casually mentioned, "The Jake family is in trouble, losing key personnel and struggling to keep their product line. They're seeking loans everywhere." I knew because I had a hand in it. One day my cousin's family was out, so I took my nephew to the hospital for a dental checkup. Coincidentally, I ran into Emma by the fountain. She looked pale and dazed in her wheelchair. Jake handed her a thermos, but she slapped it away, spilling hot water on his face. He yelled, "What do you want from me? You yelled at me. You don't love me anymore." Crying, Emma said, "Leave me. I don't need a man who doesn't love me. Let me fend for myself." My 4-year-old nephew asked, "Auntie, are they crazy? Should we buy them food? Teacher says we should be kind to crazy people." Jake heard this, looking at me in surprise. I noticed he looked ill with dark circles and sunken eyes. Seeing my nephew, Emma pointed at me. "Are you here to mock me? How evil can you be? Mia, if you hadn't come to the party, this wouldn't have happened." I was speechless. People who blame others will find any reason, no matter how far-fetched. I'm not your mom. Why follow me, Mia? Stop talking. Jake always tried to silence me. "You should spend this time getting her a mental health check." My nephew giggled. "Auntie is awesome." I carried him away, leaving them arguing. 4 years of college ended. As I packed, I saw Naomi with her suitcase. She nodded and walked past, but suddenly turned back. "That night, you knew I tampered with the railing. Why didn't you expose me?" I shook my head. "I don't know what you're talking about." I didn't want to get involved in her issues with Emma. On the contrary, the deeper her revenge on those two, the happier I was. Turning, a strong hand shoved me against the wall. "Jake, what's wrong with you? Emma's been missing for days. Is it your doing?" He stared at me, his hand slowly reaching my neck. "She often disappears. Do I get blamed for every missing hair? I saw you with Naomi. You must have incited her. You're jealous of Emma and blame her for taking my heart." I looked at him coldly, tapping his head. "Jake, how are your bones lately?" He swallowed, recalling how I had overpowered him. "Show me your phone, and I'll know if you plotted against Emma." I laughed. "You think you deserve to see my phone?" He smirked. "You're hiding something." He tried to grab my phone, pushing me into a small studio. Seeing his angry face, I remembered something funny. "Jake, if Emma's been missing for days, why aren't you looking for her instead of harassing me? You don't care that much, do you?" Since our last encounter at the hospital, Jake's patience with Emma had waned. No matter how deep the love, constant testing and drama would wear it out. Caught, Jake lit a cigarette. "Long time since you cursed at me. It's nostalgic." I wondered if he needed a mental check too. In the silence, my phone rang. It was my junior, Leo. "Senior, I'm ready for you." He was my recent go-to model. "I'll be there soon." "Stop, you're not leaving." Jake heard Leo's playful tone and got suspicious. "What's your relationship with him?" I shrugged. "Shut up if you can't speak properly." Jake blocked the door, insisting I go to the police station with him to wait for news about Emma. I elbowed him, but the closed studio filled with smoke. Jake's discarded cigarette had ignited the corner's papers. It was an accident. He panicked, calling for help. In the thickening smoke, I saved as many papers as I could. Fortunately, other students helped, and the fire was quickly extinguished. Both Jake and I were reprimanded, but he was publicly reported. Whether in the past or now, nothing good came from associating with him. Now, we must go to the police. I dialed 911 coldly. Perhaps it was fate. Among all the burned papers, one was my old painting. Asterisk, memory in the snow asterisk. At the police station, Jake saw the half-burned painting and trembled. "Mia, did you paint this? Was it you who carried me home?" I stayed silent. He clutched the paper, showing a mix of regret and longing. Soon my dad and Jake's parents arrived. It was late with heavy rain outside, the raindrops splashing like golden butterflies. Seeing her son in despair, Jake's mom raised her umbrella to hit me. "Such a small matter and you call the police? You're a spiteful girl with no manners. Watch your mouth. Don't you dare touch my daughter. My dad stood protectively. Mia, it's just a few paintings. I can buy you 100. You just want to ruin my son. My dad laughed. Who wants your entitled son? Jake's parents were already upset because my dad hadn't loaned them money. Now they had a reason to vent. The police silenced them. Jake's mom clung to him. Tell me this isn't true. You didn't mess around with others. Tell me this isn't true. You didn't mess around with others. Enough, Mom. Jake covered his face. You shouldn't talk to Mia like that. I raised an eyebrow. What was this? Jake was ordered to compensate me for the lost paintings, but his mom refused, insisting her son did nothing wrong. In the struggle, a small bag of white powder fell from Jake's pocket. Silence fell. The police officers' faces turned serious. They picked up the powder for testing and temporarily handcuffed Jake. My dad sneered. You should have left. Now your son can't. Tonight was full of twists, and I was exhausted. My dad, like when I was a child, patted my shoulder, assuring me everything would be fine. Days later, I received an interview notice from a top foreign art school and heard Emma had returned, pregnant again with her mixed-race boyfriend's child. But he was arrested abroad, shattering her dreams, and she returned to Jake. However, Jake was still detained. His blood test was clean, but the origin of the contraband was unknown. In the end, pregnant Emma testified he was framed during a party. After verification, Jake was released. That day, my dad drove me to a city meeting. Stuck in traffic near the police station, we saw Jake's mom furiously pulling Emma's hair, blaming her for ruining Jake. Emma, pregnant, fought back, pinning her down. She coldly said, My first child died because of Jake. He owes me. Jake, entangled with Emma, painfully cut ties with his family to care for her and the baby. I posted videos of them online, captioning, a pinnacle of pure love. I knew Emma's paranoid nature and hired trolls to imply that marriage should be between equals. During Emma's love life streams, people noticed Jake's deteriorating state. One day I shared an award-winning painting. Jake liked it first. That night during Emma's stream, she tried to get Jake to act lovingly. Jake didn't comply. Mocked by viewers, Emma lost control and shattered a bottle on Jake's face. Watching their mutual destruction, I happily ate an extra bowl of rice. Soon, the struggling Jake family hosted a dinner. I attended in style, presenting a masterpiece, earning praise from all. Ignored, Emma glared at me with resentment. She wanted to showcase her love with Jake, but with his family's bankruptcy imminent, no one cared. Jake's parents pushed him to marry a wealthy woman, to become a live-in son-in-law, at least maintaining a high-quality life. Emma clung to Jake, her words a veiled threat. Jake, you're all I have. If you leave, I don't know what I'll do. Jake closed his eyes, reopening them with indifference. I'll stay with you until the end. Emma smiled cunningly. If you break your promise, may your family suffer. Jake's mom collapsed, trembling. I live-streamed the touching scene. With public pressure, Jake had no choice but to stick with Emma. He reluctantly job hunted, but with his record, no company would hire him. Jake and Emma got married. Months later, she gave birth to a son, making Jake a new father. But his meager income couldn't support them. Jake's mom visited, pleading for me to win back her son. That leech Emma is draining my son. She had tears in her eyes. She spends thousands on clothes monthly, while my son works night shifts to support her. I smiled. Auntie, your son chose this. Blame no one. Before leaving, I held my first art exhibition. As I chatted with art enthusiasts, Jake approached, forcing a smile. Mia, your exhibition is great. I love it. I coldly replied, Thanks. His tone dropped. There's no memory in the snow. It's good it burned. It's my most regretted painting. I should thank you. Jake looked shocked, staring at me. After a long pause, he hoarsely asked, Are you leaving the country? None of your business. Mia, when Emma gave birth, I had a nightmare of us being married. I treated you terribly, blaming you for Emma's suffering. I clenched my teeth at his tears. Done performing? Get out and don't disturb my guests. Mia, that dream isn't real, right? I didn't ruin your family, didn't threaten your father, didn't make you guard a grave. How did it come to this? Jake laughed and cried, shaking his head. We grew up together. We should have had a happy ending. I realized now I didn't love Emma. I just enjoyed her dependence and couldn't let go of the time and effort I put in. Jake, I care about you, I shouted. Security, call 911 for this man. As he was dragged out, Jake struggled. Security, call 911 for this man. As he was dragged out, Jake struggled, asking me not to forget him. I almost lost my composure in disgust. Months abroad, my dad mentioned Emma was gone, and Jake was depressed. Postpartum, Emma remained sensitive, venting her frustrations on Jake. She both loved and hated her child, drowning in alcohol and nicotine. At a bar, she was spotted by Naomi, now a famous actress. Naomi humiliated Emma, making her kneel and sing. Emma's snapping nearly strangled Naomi. The online backlash was severe. Emma and Jake fought incessantly. Jake, in a fit, yelled, "If I knew you were pretending, I wouldn't have chosen you over Mia." That night, Emma turned on the gas. Only Jake was saved, but his organs were damaged. With previous hard labor, his body was wrecked, leaving him bedridden, living on welfare. Hearing this, I only said, got it. Everyone makes their choices and faces their fate. Some exhaust themselves proving their love. I wouldn't let love torment me. I cherished this second chance, painting my path to a bright future.